Welcome to my channel. Ready-made ending script you can reuse for all your Canadian 5-cent coin videos. I'll make it around 300 to 400 words, catchy, professional, and perfect for YouTube narration. Clapperboard ending script for Canadian 5-cent coin videos. And that wraps up today's journey into the world of the Canadian 5-cent coin. We've seen how such a small coin can carry such a big story, from the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II reminding us of Canada's royal heritage, to the hard-working beaver design that has symbolized resilience and industry for generations. Whether struck in nickel, steel, or with modern plating, each coin reflects its time in history, its economy, and the craftsmanship of the Royal Canadian Mint. What makes these coins truly special is not just their face value, but the memories they hold. For some, it's the jingling of nickels in a pocket on the way to school, or the excitement of trading them in for candy at a corner store. For others, it's the thrill of discovering an uncirculated piece, a rare error, or simply adding one more date to a growing. The 1975 Canadian 5-cent coin, Elizabeth II DG Regina. I've made it detailed, story-driven, and engaging so you can use it as a voiceover for your channel. Scroll YouTube script. The story of the 1975 Canadian 5-cent coin, Elizabeth II DG Regina. Clapperboard introduction. Welcome back, coin lovers, history hunters, and treasure seekers. Today, we dive into the fascinating world of Canadian currency, and our focus is on a tiny yet powerful piece of history, the 1975 Canadian 5-cent coin. At first glance, it might just seem like an ordinary nickel, a small coin with a beaver on one side and Queen Elizabeth II on the other. But beneath its metallic surface lies a deep story about Canada's culture, its royal ties, its minting history, and even its value to collectors today. So grab your magnifying glass, because we're about to explore the design, history, variations, mintage, errors, and collector value of this coin in great depth. Classical Building, Part 1. The Historical Backdrop. To truly appreciate the 1975 Canadian 5-cent coin, we must rewind the clock and understand the context of the 1970s. Canada in 1975 was a nation in transition. Pierre Elliott Trudeau was the Prime Minister, and the country was celebrating its growing independence while still holding deep ties to the British monarchy. The economy faced challenges. Inflation was climbing, oil prices were changing, and everyday Canadians relied on small coins like the nickel to buy daily essentials. Now, the Canadian nickel has a fascinating history of its own. Since 1922, the beaver design became a proud national symbol, representing industry, hard work, and the natural beauty of Canada. The beaver wasn't just chosen randomly. It had been central to Canada's fur trade economy for centuries. By 1975, the 5-cent coin had already become a household staple. But this particular year produced a nickel that would carry the youthful portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, the monarch whose image had appeared on Canadian coins since her coronation in 1953. Crown Part 2. The obverse, Queen Elizabeth II. Let's take a closer look at the obverse side of the 1975 nickel. Here, we see a right-facing portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, designed by Arnold Machin, a famous British sculptor. This portrait is known as the Second Portrait of Elizabeth II, which appeared on Canadian coins from 1965 until 1989. The engraving shows the Queen with a youthful, serene expression, wearing a tiara, specifically, the Girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara, one of her most iconic pieces of jewelry. Around her portrait is the Latin inscription, Elizabeth II DG Regina. This translates to, Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen. The inscription reminds us of the deep connection between Canada and the monarchy during this time. Even though Canada was carving out its independent identity, the Queen's presence on the coin symbolized unity, stability, and tradition. Part 3. The reverse, the beaver design. Now, let's flip the coin over to the reverse side, perhaps the most beloved part of the Canadian nickel. Here sits the iconic beaver, perched on a rock in the middle of the water. This design was created in 1937 by G.E. Kruger Gray, a renowned artist whose work continues to define Canadian currency. The beaver is more than just an animal. It's a national symbol of perseverance, industriousness, and Canada's vast wilderness. Above the beaver is the denomination, 5 cents. Below the beaver, we see the word Canada and the year 1975. And at the very bottom, you'll notice tiny initials, KG, the artist's signature. Hammer and Pick, Part 4. Minting and Specifications. So what exactly makes the 1975 nickel special? Let's get into the technical details. Country: Canada. Denomination: 5 cents. Year: 1975. Metal composition: 100% nickel, not the copper-nickel alloy used in later years. Weight: 4.54 grams. Diameter: 21.21 millimeters. Edge: smooth. Mint: Royal Canadian Mint, Ottawa. Back in 1975, the coin was struck entirely in nickel, giving it a slightly magnetic property, unlike modern 5-cent coins, which use a nickel-plated steel core. The use of pure nickel was significant because Canada was one of the world's largest producers of the metal, making it both symbolic and practical. Bar chart Part 5. Mintage numbers. Now, let's talk about how many of these coins were made. In 1975, the Royal Canadian Mint produced approximately 123,667,675 nickels. That's over 123 million coins. Clearly, the 1975 nickel was not a rare coin in circulation. But despite these high numbers, many nickels from this year have disappeared from circulation due to wear, loss, and hoarding by collectors. Magnifying glass tilted left Part 6. Errors and Varieties. One of the most exciting parts of coin collecting is finding error coins, and the 1975 Canadian 5 cents has its fair share of interesting varieties. Some known errors include die cracks, small raised lines caused by damaged dies. Off-center strikes, where the design isn't properly aligned. Double dies, making some letters or numbers appear doubled. Planchet flaws, missing metal or unusual shapes. Collectors often pay much higher prices for these rare errors, since they're essentially mint-made accidents that stand out from the millions of standard nickels. Money Bag Part 7. Collector Value. So how much is a 1975 Canadian 5 cents coin worth today? For a coin in average circulated condition, it's usually worth around 5 to 20 cents to collectors. However, if you have a coin in uncirculated or proof-like condition, it can fetch $2 to $10 depending on the grade. Error coins, on the other hand, can sell for tens or even hundreds of dollars, depending on rarity. Globe Showing Americas Part 8. Cultural and Historical Impact. Beyond its monetary value, the 1975 nickel represents something much bigger. It reminds us of Canada's economic history in the 1970s, a time of inflation and shifting global markets. It reflects Canada's deep ties to the British monarchy, with Queen Elizabeth II's portrait serving as a symbol of tradition. And most importantly, it celebrates a uniquely Canadian symbol, the beaver, showing the country's pride in its natural heritage. For many Canadians, this little coin is nostalgic. It jingled in the pockets of schoolchildren buying candy, bus riders paying fares, and families saving loose change in glass jars. Trophy Part 9. Tips for Collectors. If you're interested in collecting the 1975 Canadian nickel, here are some tips. 1. Look for high-grade coins, coins with little to no scratches, strong luster, and sharp details. 2. Check for errors. Use a magnifying glass to spot doubled numbers, cracks, or off-center strikes. 3. Store them properly. Use coin holders or albums to prevent scratches. 4. Keep an eye on auctions. Rare varieties often pop up in Canadian coin auctions or online marketplaces. Microphone conclusion. So there you have it, the story of the 1975 Canad. Perfect thumbs up. Let's build a 2,000-word YouTube documentary-style script for the 2009 Canadian 5 cents coin, Elizabeth II DG Regina. I'll make it detailed, historical, and engaging, just like your other coin scripts, so you can use it for narration. Clapperboard YouTube script, the 2009 Canadian 5 cents coin, Elizabeth II DG Regina. Introduction. Welcome back, coin enthusiasts and history lovers. Today, we're taking a close look at a small yet fascinating piece of Canadian money, the 2009 Canadian 5 cents coin, bearing the inscription Elizabeth II DG Regina. At first glance, it looks just like any other nickel in your pocket change. But behind its design, its minting, and even its role in Canadian culture lies an incredible story. This isn't just about a coin, it's about Canada's economy, its royal traditions, its craftsmanship, and the hidden gems collectors are still searching for today. So, sit back and join me on this deep dive journey into the world of the 2009 Canadian nickel. Part 1. The historical context. To understand the 2009 nickel, we must first understand what was happening in Canada and around the world at the time. The year 2009 was marked by the aftermath of the 2008 global financial crisis. Economies were struggling, people were watching their spending, and every cent, or in this case, every nickel, really mattered. In Canada, Stephen Harper was Prime Minister, and the country was navigating both economic challenges and opportunities. For everyday Canadians, small coins like the nickel still played a vital role, for vending machines, payphones, bus fares, and of course, pocket change. And while inflation made the value of 5 cents feel smaller compared to earlier decades, the nickel remained a cultural symbol and a collectible item for those who appreciated its history. Part 2. The obverse. Queen Elizabeth II. The obverse side of the 2009 nickel proudly features the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, Canada's head of state. This version of her portrait was designed by Canadian artist Susanna Blunt, and it was first introduced in 2003. Unlike the earlier portraits by Arnold McKim and Dora de Pedery Hunt, this one is unique because it does not include a crown or tiara. Instead, Elizabeth II is shown with a simple, modern hairstyle, a more human and approachable image. The inscription around her portrait reads, Elizabeth II D.G. Regina. This is Latin for Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen. It reflects both Canada's constitutional monarchy and its deep-rooted traditions, even in a modern setting like 2009. Part 3. The reverse, the beaver design. Now let's flip the coin over to the reverse side. Here, we find one of the most beloved symbols in Canadian numismatics, the beaver on a rock. This design was first introduced in 1937 by G.E. Kruger Gray, and it has remained virtually unchanged for decades. The beaver is more than just an animal. It symbolizes hard work, resourcefulness, and Canada's wilderness. It also connects back to the fur trade, which played a huge role in Canada's early economy. On the coin, the beaver sits on a rock in water, surrounded by the inscriptions. 5 cents at the top. Canada, below. And the year, 2009. At the very bottom, you can spot the tiny initials, KG, a mark of Kruger Gray's timeless artistry. Part 4. Minting details. The 2009 Canadian nickel was struck at the Royal Canadian Mint, which has been producing Canada's coins since 1908. Here are its technical specifications. Country, Canada. Denomination, 5 cents. Year, 2009. Composition, 94.5% steel, 3.5% copper, 2% nickel plating. Weight, 3.95 grams. Diameter, 21.2 millimeters. Edge, smooth. Mint mark, none, for circulation coins. Unlike earlier Canadian nickels, which were once made of pure nickel, the 2009 version reflects modern minting practices, using a multiply plated steel planchet. This change helped reduce costs and made coins more durable. Part 5. Mintage numbers. So how many 2009 nickels were made? In 2009, the Royal Canadian Mint struck an impressive number. Approximately 102 million nickels for general circulation. In addition, smaller numbers were produced for collector sets and proof-like strikes, which are far more valuable today. Part 6. Errors and varieties. For collectors, the 2009 nickel is especially interesting because of its potential minting errors. While most coins are perfectly struck, a few mistakes slip through the mint each year. Some known errors include die clashes, where parts of the design from one side appear faintly on the other. Off-center strikes, where the image isn't properly aligned. Double dies, where letters or numbers look doubled. Plating flaws, causing unusual coloring or patches on the coin. These rare variations can fetch much higher prices than a standard 2009 nickel. Part 7. Collector value. Now, the big question. What is a 2009 Canadian 5 cents coin worth today? In circulated condition, it's generally worth its face value, 5 cents. In uncirculated condition, straight from a mint roll, it can sell for 50 cents to $2. In proof-like or specimen sets, Values range from $5 to $20, depending on quality. Rare error coins can go much higher, sometimes $50, $100, or more, depending on demand. While it's not the rarest Canadian coin, collectors often add it to their sets as part of a complete modern collection. Part 8. Cultural and symbolic significance. Beyond money, the 2009 nickel holds cultural meaning. It symbolizes continuity. The beaver design has been on the nickel since 1937, linking generations. It represents tradition and monarchy, with Elizabeth II's portrait reminding Canadians of their ties to the crown. It reflects modern minting innovation, using steel cores and plating instead of pure nickel, adapting to economic realities. And perhaps most importantly, it's a memory trigger. For many Canadians, the nickel reminds them of buying candy at corner stores, using payphones, or saving coins in piggy banks. Part 9. Tips for collectors. If you want to add the 2009 nickel to your collection, here are some tips. 1. Check condition carefully. Look for uncirculated examples with full mint luster. 2. Look for errors. Use a magnifying glass to spot doubled numbers, cracks, or unusual features. 3. Buy mint sets, coins from proof-like or specimen sets RTH. Got it? Thumbs up. You'd like a 2,000-word YouTube documentary-style script on the 2010 Canadian 5-cent coin, Elizabeth II D.G. Regina. I'll make it detailed, engaging, and structured for narration, just like your other scripts. Clapperboard YouTube script, the 2010 Canadian 5-cent coin, Elizabeth II D.G. Regina. Introduction. Welcome back, coin enthusiasts and history lovers. Today, we're taking a close look at a small but fascinating piece of modern Canadian coinage, the 2010 Canadian 5-cent coin. At first glance, this coin may seem ordinary, just another nickel with a beaver on one side and Queen Elizabeth II on the other. But as with all coins, there's more to the story. Every coin is a time capsule, reflecting not only the economy of its era but also the artistry, technology, and national symbols that shape it. In this episode, we'll explore the history, design, mintage, errors, values, and cultural impact of the 2010 Canadian nickel, and why collectors continue to pay attention to it. Part 1. The historical context. To understand the 2010 nickel, let's travel back in time. In 2010, Canada was recovering from the 2008 to 2009 global financial crisis. The economy was stabilizing, and everyday Canadians were once again paying closer attention to their spending. Coins like the nickel still played an important role in daily transactions, whether for vending machines, parking meters, or exact change at shops. This period also marked growing debates in Canada about the usefulness of small coins. Inflation had eroded the purchasing power of the nickel, and some argued it should eventually be phased out, just like the Canadian penny would be in 2012. Still, the 5-cent coin carried on, proudly displaying symbols of both Canadian heritage and its ties to the monarchy. Part 2. The obverse. Queen Elizabeth II. The obverse side of the 2010 nickel features a familiar face, Queen Elizabeth II. The portrait was designed by Canadian artist Susanna Blunt, introduced in 2003 and still in use today. What makes this portrait unique is that it shows the Queen without a crown or tiara. Instead, she is depicted with a natural hairstyle, a softer and more approachable image compared to the more regal depictions of earlier decades. Around her portrait runs the Latin inscription, Elizabeth II D.G. Regina. This translates to, Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen. This simple yet powerful phrase reminds us of Canada's status as a constitutional monarchy and its ongoing historical ties to the British Crown. Part 3. The reverse, the beaver design. Flipping the coin over, we see the reverse side featuring the iconic beaver design. The beaver has been the symbol of Canada's nickel since 1937, when artist G.E. Kruger Gray created this enduring image. It shows a beaver sitting on a rock in the water, hard at work, a fitting metaphor for Canadian perseverance and industry. Above the beaver is the denomination, 5 cents. Below, we see Canada and the date, 2010. At the very bottom are the initials, KG, honoring the artist. The beaver was chosen as the symbol for the nickel because it was central to Canada's fur trade, which fueled the country's early economy and played a key role in its history. Part 4. Minting details. The 2010 Canadian 5-cent coin was struck at the Royal Canadian Mint, famous for its innovation in coin production. Here are the specifications. Country: Canada. Denomination: 5 cents. Year: 2010. Composition: 94.5% steel, 3.5% copper, 2% nickel plating. Weight: 3.95 grams. Diameter: 21.2 millimeters. Edge: smooth. Mint mark: none for circulation strikes. By 2010, the nickel was no longer made of pure nickel, as in the early 20th century. Instead, it used a steel core with nickel plating, a cost-effective and durable choice that reflected modern minting practices. Part 5. Mintage numbers. So how many were made? In 2010, the Royal Canadian Mint struck approximately 99 million nickels for circulation. Additionally, a smaller number of coins were produced in proof-like sets and special collector editions, which were struck with higher quality finishes. Part 6. Errors and varieties. As with all modern coins, the 2010 nickel also has its share of error coins, rare misstrikes that collectors hunt for. Some reported varieties include off-center strikes, where part of the design is missing; die cracks, raised lines caused by breaks in the coin die; double dies, letters or numbers appear doubled; plating errors, areas where the nickel coating didn't properly cover the steel core. While most 2010 nickels are common, these error varieties can make certain coins worth far more than face value. Part 7. Collector value. So what is the 2010 Canadian 5-cent coin worth today? Circulated condition: still worth about 5 cents. Uncirculated condition: around 50 cents to $2. Proof-like and specimen coins: $5 to $20. Rare error coins can fetch anywhere from $50 to several $100s, depending on rarity and demand.